Welcome back. You're tuning into Financial Fitness Northwest Live on 1150 KKNW, where we help you navigate the mortgage and real estate markets with expert advice from knowledgeable and trustworthy industry professionals. And we have a couple here today. I'm excited. We are here with Lisa Serratos McGregor and Roger Bintner of Synergy Properties and Puget Sound, Keller Williams Puget Sound. Lisa is a realtor, broker, and entrepreneur since the age of 19. She started very early, and she's also the coach and the team leader for Synergy Properties and an equestrian property specialist. So that will be interesting to hear about. And Lisa's also a mother of 3 wonderful children and married for 10 years to Sean McGregor, and she's a top producer at Keller Williams Puget Sound. And her partner, Roger, has been in real estate industry for 15 years and 30 years in marketing and advertising. And Roger's main goal has been to achieve 100% client satisfaction, so he works very hard and is driven by his passion for people and the industry to accomplish this goal. And Roger is a father of 2 and 3 grandchildren. So welcome, Lisa and Roger.
Well, thank you very much.
So happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having us, Patricia. It's awesome.
So today we're going to talk, I think, a lot about pre-inspection, and I know this is a really important topic for you guys. But before we get into that, kind of tell me a little bit about your team.
Well, thanks again for having us. A little bit about our team. We are in the Keller Williams Puget Sound and Federal Way. We focus on King and Pierce County area. And we have basically a set of buyer's agents, showing assistants, and listing partners. And so we each have a role that we play out to make sure that we can meet our clients' expectations and needs. And I'll let Roger explain a little bit more about that.
My background coming, being an entrepreneur also for a long period of time, I'm really process-oriented. And I've always been an individual agent until about a year and a half ago or so when I met up with Lisa and decided that at the last phase of my career that I'd help Lisa put together a team. So I basically have spent a year putting together the back office processes to help us be a little more, have better communication with all of our clients and a little better follow through. So that's really been kind of how the team got started and what we're about right now.
That sounds awesome. So how many total people do you have on your team right now?
Well, we have a couple of showing assistants, and we have about 4 buyer's agents, and we have about 4 administrative type people that work in the backside scenes.
Wow. That's a big team.
It's growing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you guys obviously have a really good system, and you each kind of playing your own roles on the team. So I feel like, I mean, tell me how can that benefit a potential client for you guys with so many resources within your group?
Well, I think the benefit would be the fact that we specialize in 1 or 2 areas to where a lot of agents try to play all the different hats. And so a really good scenario would be if you are working with an individual agent, how could they be at an appointment, also be the one answering your phone call, running around putting flyers or trying to get new business as well as keep the business. So with our team, the great thing about us is that because we individualize those positions, we're able to cover and make sure people are supported. They have someone that can answer the phone. And at the end of the day, it gives them the results and, you know, why we get great reviews because we do that and we decided to separate it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's kind of like now it's in this day and age, there's so many balls in the air with each transaction, right? It sort of takes a village to manage it all.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's been really helpful because we separated basically the buying function and working with the buyer's agents and the same with the listing side of it. So each one of us had a really large database when we got together. So we basically tried to play significant roles on the team. Right now we've switched roles. Last year I was the lead listing agent. Lisa handled the buyer's agents. We switched roles at the first of the year. Now I'll handle the training and the buyer's agents, and she handles the listings. If it's a client from our past, we'll go to the listing appointment together. So we build a rapport. So if the client wants to work with obviously who they started with, then we stay there. If not, then we've introduced both of us to the client.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. That sounds like a really good system. So let's get into pre-inspection. So what do you think? Well, I guess first, as far as agents, let's talk about, so what are the characteristics that you think the clients are looking for in an agent? And I'd just say it seems like you guys would have it covered with all those different people, but, what's important there?
Well, I think the nice thing about our team is we have people that are in their early 20s to, over 70 years old. So we've got a wide variety of ages. So I think that really can stand apart for somebody who's coming to look. Sometimes people want someone who's been in the business longer. Sometimes people love someone who's a lot younger and who wants to text and deal with business in a different manner. We have everybody's different. So the first thing we do is we'll set up an interview with that client and basically ask, how do you want to be communicated with? How would you like to work with this particular process? And so we learn those things right up front, whether it be a seller or a buyer, with, a firm amount of questions and, talking to each other, building that rapport and relationship.
We have a quick interview process when we're meeting with someone that basically outlines we're trying to build trust. So trust is with experience, the review factors of all the people that we've done business with in the past. We're happy to share that with our clients so they could talk one-on-one if they want to find out what the experience was like dealing with us, either buying a home or selling a home. And that's probably the biggest factor, building that trust factor with the client.
Yeah, I know.
I agree.
That is huge. That is huge. That's huge for all of our different roles in this industry. So that's
who you hire matters.
Oh, for sure.
It is, for sure.
For sure. I know. We are in need of someone right now, and I was just hearing this. I've heard it several different places, but it's like hire for personality and then train, because it's so much easier to get the right person with the right character and, the qualities that you need in place, and then you can teach them the job. And so it's really important.
Agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, absolutely.
People skills are hard to teach.
Yeah. You kind of have it or you don't, right?
Roger loves to have the new hires, not with a bunch of bad habits. So.
Yeah, you can just mold them right from the beginning, right?
He sure does.
Awesome. So pre-inspection. So let's talk about that, and how does that benefit the seller to do a pre-inspection? First, I guess you should tell our audience, what does that mean, pre-inspection?
Well, typical real estate from the past 15 or 20 years, once a client is under contract, then the buyer basically performs an inspection on the house to discover, so it's full disclosure. I mean, obviously the seller has provided a Form 17, but, it's always buyer beware. So the buyer on their own hires a professional certified inspector who comes and walks through the house, and they're licensed and basically produces a report that outlines all the systems and what's going on with the house.
Right.
So what's happened in today's market, and I've seen it more and more now, I've done it for probably more than 3 or 4 years doing pre-inspections. I hardly recommend them. It's where the seller does one. It's the first step I take in a listing presentation, and I do it for a couple of reasons to start with. Everybody always wants to ask, what am I going to do to improve my house? Do I want to put in new counters? Do I want to, and I don't start there. I want to know how much money we have to spend to fix what could be the major problems.
The snakes in the grass,
exactly,
right?
Absolutely. And I want to know that up front before we get involved in all the other stuff, how to make it pretty. So that's basically where it started. It's what it is, and it's why we do it. And more agents are starting to do it. So I'm just happy to see it.
And I think every seller, they know going into the listing process that they've got to do something to get their home sold. And it's always typically, what do I need to do to get top dollar, or how quickly can you get my home sold as is? And so, like Roger mentioned, the Form 17, which is a seller's disclosure form, it's for everything that they know about the home that's wrong with it. And a lot of people inherit homes and, get homes for a reason or another. Maybe they don't know anything about it. And so they really can't even fill out that form to begin with. And so the pre-inspection process, it streamlines it, just kind of sets the target right up front to say, hey, these are the things that are wrong, and let's figure out how to deal with them, or discount the price, or at least let the future buyer know about it. Right.
So obviously in doing that, you're going to find a lot out about the condition of the home. So how do you work with that? What kind of things are discovered, and what if it's kind of a big deal? Or
it can be. I've had it happen where we basically had to completely resite a house.
Wow.
And so better to know it before you put it on the market.
Was it that old
deal
siding?
with the repair. Yes.
I can't remember.
Louisiana
Yes.
Pacific.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
LP.
LP siding, yeah.
But I mean, even the smaller stuff, it just basically gives you a list, and it gives you where you have the time to go get estimates. It's a real number because you can get quotes from certified contractors that are licensed to make the repairs, and you have a real dollar amount. You're not guessing, and the seller can choose to do it, and you can make all those repairs are the ones that you choose to make before you list the property.
You know, actually, that's really probably is great too, because they're kind of in a position of power, being able to figure out who to do it, get the right quote, take their time, get it done right without doing it. Because if you wait till you're in a transaction, then you're under the gun and like who's available, and you know, it probably ends up costing a lot more money that way too.
You're definitely right. And I think with our preferred vendors and things, we're able to get them some discounts up front. But most people come to us about a month before they want to list. So sometimes some of these issues, if they decide not to do the pre-inspection, again, like you said, then they get a quick closing and they're like, wow, you know, I couldn't get in with your vendor because they're 2 weeks out, or, you know, and they have to hurry and find somebody who's doing it. And a lot of times they end up paying a higher cost.
And from the buyer's agent perspective, if you're going to guess on what that repair is going to cost from what you did, in all probability you're going to ask for twice as much in a second round of price negotiation. So it just solves that whole issue. It goes a long way towards helping.
Yeah. And I think probably does it make it more appealing for the potential buyers too, because they feel like this is really like a straight shooter, right? Their full disclosure right up front.
Yeah, definitely. I think for a buyer, and the one thing I love about when we put a listing on the market is when most of our sellers choose to do this, you know, go this route, that we have it disclosed. So the other buyer's agent who's viewing the property, once they get those signals, hey, my client wants to buy it, all they have to do is log on to the listing, onto the multiple listing service, and then all of those forms are attached. So it really, really helps the buyer see what's wrong with it, make a decision, and say, hey, you know, it looks like there's only a few years left on the roof, but that buyer's agent can also talk and educate their clients ahead of time to say, you know, in your budget, do you guys have, you know, $10,000 for later when the roof is going to need to be replaced? And it really allows them to have a little bit more at ease than going, wow, we're going to write an offer, and then to be competitive, we either have to waive our inspection or we have to get one done in 2 days, and then we don't have time to think about it. So it really definitely puts them at ease, and it saves money up front for them, too, to know if they're walking into something they can't bite off.
Yeah.
Take care of later.
We're huge in full transparency. And so Form 17 was supposed to make that happen. But an inspection report attached to that Form 17 with what the seller is willing to do or has done before that property goes on the market just makes the buyer feel 100% more secure. And we use it. We build websites for individual listings. We attach not only in the MLS, we attach it on that individual listing that we market. So the public has access to it, not just the agent. So if somebody that's just a buyer that's out looking runs across our listing, they can also have access to that information.
So does a buyer typically do their own inspection in addition to that pre-inspection, or do they just trust that?
Well, I was going to say when we were heading out to the talk show today that 83% last year of buyers did a home inspection. That was recorded. So out of 83%, you know, the other people that didn't do one, they might have waived it or later on down the road ended up having a lot of issues. But typically people will do them. And even if they waive their inspection, we see it a lot because we're in multiple offer situations all the time where the client might do one for information only. And so they'll come back and do one again. But yeah, it's a high trend that buyers do want to do them, and they want to know what's wrong with the house. And some inspectors will find different things than the pre-inspector found as well. So,
and we prefer it. To be perfectly honest, we do not try to advocate to the buyer's agent or to the buyers that they waive the inspection. If they choose to have one, it's terrific. But in most cases, when we're negotiating, it's going to be for informational purposes only, unless it's something major that the seller's inspector missed. Then we'll address it.
I think it seems like it would be a really good time to be an inspector, actually, wouldn't it?
right?
They're very, very busy right now. And, you know, you're dealing with the real estate market on the east side and downtown. It's coming to the south end. It's coming to Tacoma. Lots of buyers, because of all these multiple offers, they're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars doing a pre-inspection themselves before they write the offer on the house, and then they lose out.
Exactly.
And there are people out there that have written many offers, done many pre-inspection, and wasted a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, I know some of them, and it's really sad to me. It's like, oh, gosh.
Thousands of dollars that
really
they've spent. So this at least gives them a report card up front that is from a reliable source, because when we do, help the sellers, we don't tell them who to choose, but we give them options and making sure they're OSHI approved inspectors, and, they make their choice. And so it's from a good, reputable company.
I was going to ask that. You guys obviously probably have some inspectors that you would recommend to a seller that you're working with to listing the property. But how does a person out there go about finding a good inspector? Is there some trick to that?
Well, you can go to the ASHI site for the state of Washington. We typically, not to pick one, will give multiples. And the seller certainly has the option to interview and then pick the inspector of their choice. But obviously, we have a pretty good idea, but we certainly do not just pick an inspector and say, use this one.
Right.
And a lot of our clients are pretty sophisticated, and they do the research. And they do the interview, and they pick the inspector.
Isn't that true nowadays? Everybody's so much available information at our fingertips that people know a lot more about, well, pretty much every subject, right?
Exactly.
Right? Check the Google. It's there. It tells you. And it must be true if it's there.
Well, and we have to tell you, too, because we've been doing this for so many years, there are a lot of bad inspectors, too. I mean, you get used to a rhythm of a good inspector, and an inspection on a typical house anywhere from, let's say, 13 to 2,000 square feet is anywhere from 3 to 4 hours.
Right.
So if you've got someone coming in there and they're in and out in an hour, you're going to question it. You're going to be like, wow, I paid all this money, and, there's not a lot of value in that service. So, again, why we give names, because they're people that we trust. It doesn't mean that they can't choose someone else, and maybe they'll love them or they won't, but they're people that we trust, and they do their due diligence.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure that's a comfort, too. It's always good to have a personal recommendation, I think. But so let me ask you this question. Why would an agent not do the pre-inspection? I mean, what would be the reason when it seems so beneficial?
I think a lot of them are not convinced, and they have a hard time explaining it to the seller, who doesn't want to pay for it for one reason or another, and then the agent chooses not to do it, thinking that the market is very hot right now, so why should I bother? Not knowing full well what's going to happen. Maybe they like the chaos of what happens when you go to renegotiate the whole transaction. I mean, the way the law works in the state of Washington, when you accept an offer and an inspection is going to happen, there's a multitude of contingencies that are attached to that contract. And one of them happens to be the inspection. And basically, somebody can tie up your house for 10 days and wake up on the 9th day and found a better house and say, I'm sorry, I'm done, and not do the inspection and tie your house where it's off market. So we try to avoid that.
Yeah, very true. I mean, it's habit training. It's, lack of them knowing how it adds value. It's just the things that they learned, and I think that's why they don't do it, and it's unfortunate. Because in our business, just like yours, you got to re-educate every day and learn something new, and spend that time going out in the field and really figuring out what the new topics are and things to help your clients with. And that's what we do all the time.
And I don't think that they're convinced themselves. And if they're not convinced themselves, there's no way that they're going to have this conversation with their sellers and convince them. We're doing it right now. We're a couple weeks away from a listing that's going to happen in a great property down in South King County that has kind of a view, but it's an incredible house.
Yeah.
It's an incredible house, and the seller wasn't convinced, but it's taken about 2 weeks, and he finally has agreed.
So that's good. Well, I hope that I know this information has been really valuable because it is really important, and I hope that people will take the time to really, consider the inspection and also not waiving the inspection. I actually have a situation right now where I have buyers that were, I'm sure, probably encouraged to waive their inspection because of the multiple offer situation, and now they ended up having a really bad inspection and pulled away from the property, but they're at risk of losing their earnest money. And it's so definitely you want to work with an experienced real estate agent that's going to help guide you. And so I really appreciate all the information, you guys. Thanks so much for
Thanks for having us.
For coming on the
We
show
enjoyed
today. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you for tuning in to Financial Fitness Northwest. When we come back, we will be talking with Marty Hartman, Executive Director of Mary's Place. To find out more topics about what we've discussed on today's show, you can find us online at www.financialfitnessnw.com. Be back in a minute.